Hola, and welcome to the Overly Animated podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including DuckTales, which we'll be talking about today. I'm your host, Alex Bonilla, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
And Steve Zec.
Woohoo!
As you can tell,
that was so surprising, Steve.
Our enthusiasm here is high, as this is the season 1 finale of both our podcast on DuckTales as well as the actual show. The Shadow War aired on Disney Channel Saturday, August 18th. It was a long one for 44-minute extravaganza, and we're here to talk about it. If you can catch up on previous DuckTales discussion we've had at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes, or you can find us on YouTube as well. Wherever you listen to us, always feel free to leave any reviews and ratings. We always appreciate that. But we've got a lot to talk about. But first, Michelle has been gone for the past couple of podcasts, and the last couple of DuckTales episodes have been very eventful. So we'd like to.
I was so surprised and angry. They were so good, and I couldn't talk about them.
well, here's your chance before we get into the Shadow War. Well, Steve, you already had the chance to talk about.
I just want to make a point here. I feel like
you can make a point. Steve, go ahead.
I just want to say I think we mirror what's going on in the show. Where Michelle was away for a bit, now the family's back together here, just like on the show.
Oh my god! That's so cute, Steve.
But Michelle, what have you thought of this back half of DuckTales episodes and the build up to this finale?
I feel like the animation has gotten steadily from a very nice place to a kind of astounding place in some of these. Just like especially the gestures and the emotiveness of some of those expressions. It's just so carefully done. Like you can tell there are so many frames involved. They're really like taking their time with the details, and it's beautiful, and it shows their dedication. So many good. Like, I can't, like, the other bin of Scrooge McDuck is such an amazing episode. I think it's, like, literally my favorite episode of the season. The pacing is so good. It gives Lena one of her best moments ever. Like, it's so funny in so many places. The Secrets of Castle McDuck is also amazingly hilarious. I love Launchpad pretending to be Donald. That like it was so like the timing was so good. The things he was saying was so good. Just those two were definitely standouts. But like all of that whole chunk was really exciting. And I'm sure you guys got into a lot of what made this episode so special, but they were really, really quality. So I saw them all in like 2 days to catch up, and I was so pumped for the finale just because those were such good episodes leading up to it. My hopes were very high because of that.
Nice. And we can segue that directly into our first initial reactions to the finale here. Michelle, while you're on a roll here, so like, how did you react to what happened here in the finale?
Okay, I feel bad because I just came off of saying all that stuff, all the nice stuff, and being really high.
Mm-hmm.
This might be a little bit of a hot take. I think the first half of this finale was exceptional, and the second half was kind of a lot of awkward. Just waiting for that final showdown to happen anytime now. No, not yet. Okay, maybe in 10 more minutes. Kind of. That is my hot take. But the first half was excellently done.
Okay, interesting. Steve, do you want to counter, or what were your general reactions to the finale here?
Well, it was amazing.
Okay.
It's like build up to this. This is what they were building up towards, and they delivered. Gotta say, Webby is such a forgiving person because I would not. I don't know how she was trying to get the family back together and still on Scrooge's side after what he said to her in the last episode. I'm like, I was so mad at Scrooge for that. That was sort of uncalled for. But anyway, animation was really amazing, top notch. That they really spent the bulk of their money on that. Let's say though, the big surprise at the end, I kind of predicted, saw coming, but the whole Lena thing That actually surprised me. Did not see that coming.
Steve, I was shocked. I was shocked when Lena literally did sacrifice herself. I thought that was crazy when you said that months ago. I was like, no, that's taking it too far. They're not just gonna get rid of her. But like, she did legit basically sacrifice herself. You called that, so props.
I don't know. I called that. I was hoping. Yeah, I definitely had death flags on her, but she's not really dead.
Death flags.
She's not so dead. They found a way that she's still in Webby somewhere inside her shadow.
I think that's horrible, though. Like, if we're gonna talk about Lena, I mean, for the show to be like, oh, no, she's not real. Like, yeah, she has a room. And yeah, like, even Magica admitted to her basically being family, to kind of flip it on its head at the last one and be like, no, she's really just a shadow. She's not a real person. And to kind of condemn her to this weird limbo of not having her own autonomy and being kind of tied to Webby, I think that's really tragic. And I don't think it's... I was so excited about Lena's character, and if this is how it ends up being the end for her, and she's just going to be like a helpful shadow thing for the rest of her existence, I think that's really sad. I know you might know more things, Steve, but for the sake of not getting spoiled,
no.
Season 1, it hurts my heart, and I think she deserved better.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of way is that to live? Half alive. I don't think she deserves that.
Me too. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to stay that way. They're going to find a way to give her own body, her own autonomy.
I hope so. Because Gertrude invited her to be part of the family. Like, that's the one thing she needed.
Magica did say, in terms of she could gain Lena her freedom, in terms of her pull to Magica, her connection, but hopefully that she meant that. Hopefully there is a way, and hopefully Magica was not just BSing, because I'm sure she was BSing that she was actually going to do that for her. But does that spell exist? That's the question. I think it does, because I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful, especially after what happened the very last scene. This show is very upbeat, so I'm sure they'll find a way. The problem is Webby does not know about it at the moment. Webby has to find out, so then she'll be motivated to...
And Webby's the one who would find out, because she's the only one who has interest in magic that we've seen so far, of the kids at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will say that scene where the friendship bracelet comes out. By the way, we still haven't really explained what the friendship bracelet magic thing is. Exactly.
Power of friendship. That's all it is.
I guess. But like the Lena essence coming out to block Magica's attack, like that little sequence is very powerful. Just because we also be up to then we had Webby fighting with Magica and like, hey, I had a best friend and you took her away from me, and then just to see her get disintegrated, her essence get disintegrated.
It's terrifying.
As Magica did say, though, just said to Huey, it's just magic. It's magic. Don't overthink it.
Well, sure, but
that's what the show is saying to us, I'm sure.
And also, I guess who mentioned the Webby fight with Magica? That's like first time we really see Webby get mad. It's like all that frustration, all that stuff she is bottling up, she just let loose on Magica.
Mm-hmm. And,
she let her have it for sure.
And going back to just general impressions, like Michelle pointed out something important, that like the second half of this episode is pretty much all action. It's all fight sequences. So like I thought I was gonna be the one with the weird hot take, but I guess not. But in that I do think the last Chase of the Sun Chaser is a better episode. Like I think that has such a much better emotional climax. Whereas this, like, it's a lot of fighting. In the middle, you get the whole Scrooge coming to terms with family being okay sort of thing. But it feels like it happens so quickly, and it's kind of so buried by all the Magica stuff that it doesn't have the same impact as it did in the last episode, where he comes to that giant, he has to give that giant revelation. He has everybody abandon him.
Yeah.
Like, that's so much more effective than whatever emotional payoff they're trying here. So, like, this episode is such a grand thing. Like, it's hard to compare a 44-minute to, like, an average 22-minute episode. But I think that while the Shadow War, like, it's trying to do a lot of things, and I do think there are great parts of it. Like, I love the Donald sequences. We're gonna get to that.
Oh, yeah.
The Webby Lena stuff is pretty good, too. But I think that there's just a lot of extra stuff that I don't quite come to DuckTales for, such as the action sequences. So in the end, it ends up diluting it a little bit. So like it's good for a finale, but at the same time, I don't want to call it the best episode of the show, as I've seen some people kind of tempted to call it.
Well, it's a heat of the moment. You gotta just heat of the moment after you see an episode. You gotta give them a little break.
This is your hot, fresh take. That's true.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not personally, I'm not anti-action. You know, like action can be awesome, and there have been examples of amazing action sequences that hold their tension and are very dynamic and engaging. I think the issue is, and we've seen this a couple times now, is when it starts to feel very Saturday morning cartoony, because like this show seems to have very clear ambitions at this point of wanting to be more than that, right? It wants to have real stakes. It wants to have character development, interactions, and tell a really engaging, kind of complicated, kind of emotional story.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes it kind of holds back. And it's like, wait. This is still for kids, though. We got to do that Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibe. And that's when it feels the most kind of disingenuous to what this show right now is. Like, regardless of what its previous incarnation is, it's kind of its own flavor now. And I think the action stuff, when it feels like padding, when it feels like it's just like it's trying to put stuff in there for the sake of having more time until we build up to the thing we're waiting for, that's when it's the least engaging to me personally. Yeah. But I know some people might enjoy that, but like that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I think though they might be overdoing it with keeping all these elderly characters alive, like having Scrooge be so old, or having Scrooge's parents still be alive. I mean,
there are a lot of old people characters.
I guess so. Although, actually, like in terms of like keeping characters important, like the one thing that stood out to me, like including Gyro in the whole fighting stuff, like he doesn't do much in this episode, and we keep cutting back to him. There. So like I wonder like what's the purpose of that? Like if Gyro wasn't a fan favorite from the past show, like would he be included in this? Because otherwise I don't see much of a purpose for him in this episode. So like it felt weird.
One of the funniest moments though when Scrooge pretty much said he was just a work acquaintances, and his reaction was like, "Aw," before Magica threw him in the water.
That was a very strong moment. I feel like there were much stronger moments.
I thought it was funny.
One. And if you was there for
that's a Zane though. It's a funny little moment, and also it kind of compares this Gyro to the previous Gyro. In other incarnations, he's much closer friend to Scrooge than he is in this version, so might have gotten a different answer there.
That's interesting.
So I guess we're a little bit. It seems Steve is the highest on this, but there are definitely a lot of different pieces to pick apart here. I think the most publicized one was Donald Duck because of his new voice. I know that got a lot of coverage in media.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that first.
Talk about it.
So here, Donald is given a Barksian modulator, which is a reference to Karl Barks of the DuckTales comics, which is basically a voice box. And so in this episode, Donald Duck, for the most part, is voiced by Don Cheadle, who is more well known for his parts in the Marvel Cinematic Universe these days.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about the move here, Michelle? You've complained about understanding Donald in the past. How did you feel actually understanding him?
We all have, not just me.
Okay. I call myself guilty on that one too. You're right. But what were your takes on it?
My feeling was when it first, like, to have the show literally address the fact that it's hard to understand exactly what he says was more than I ever could have hoped and dreamed for. And I commend them a lot for that because it was hilarious and it was just perfect in the moment. And I like the idea of it. I do think they milked it a little too much as the episode wore on. And I started to, and the thing is also, I mean, the voice thing basically ended up changing his entire personality in a way. Like he got really assertive and like wanted to do everything and had all these like quippy comebacks. But like, that's not why I love Donald. I love Donald because he tries really hard. And a lot of times he doesn't succeed, but he like keeps on going and he gets really flustered, and that he's very flawed and enjoyable for that reason. But to see this kind of like perfect leader Donald was not that fun after the first bit, and I just wanted him to get back to his normal self, which I knew he would have to by the end of the episode.
Yeah,
but yeah.
My favorite O'Donnell moment was before that, when they were all at the table and we'll be playing the game of, let's talk about your family members, and everyone talking about all the good stuff about Donald.
So sweet, right?
I love that.
It warmed his, you could see, it's been a while since anyone's, thanked him for being basically the father figure of these three kids. And it just made him so happy for them to acknowledge that he's been, being a good parent.
And we should note that he gets the Don Cheadle voice halfway through this finale. So, the first half of Donald is...
he's just himself.
Yeah, he's just himself, and I think it focuses a lot more on his role in the family, right? Because we have that part about the complimenting at the toast. At the very beginning, he's doing his best to welcome the nephews back. He's got, the sardines and stuff.
Yeah, and, scary snack.
Yeah, so I think in the first half, Donald is really where I love him, because he is trying his best to just be a father figure for these kids and whatnot. Yeah. That's how we've known Donald to be through this show. And then when the Don Cheadle stuff comes around, you're right that it does feel a little bit like he's taking more charge than he would have in his normal personality. Although at the same time, I think that they do a good job of encasing his rage, because Donald in his normal self is very quick to rage, and I think that even in the second half they keep that side of him, as well as his protectiveness of his children, especially in that scene in the money bin where he's don't touch my kids or something like that. That's a nice part of it. I think that they do manage to keep intact for the Donald character. Steve?
I slightly disagree. My take on it was Donald's personality didn't really change. It was everyone else's reaction to him that changed. That they actually started listening to him and respect him more. I felt like all along, if he is his normal weird voice, if they all would give him a chance, the situation would have been the same. I think it's not Donald that changed. It's Mrs. Beakley, it's the nephews, it's Webby. Everyone's, reaction to him and respect of him, pretty much taking him seriously, may have changed.
I think, Steve, that's definitely what, where the show is coming from. But I also, we've seen, Donald, given what has happened with, say, his twin sister and everything, he I guess, used to be more adventurous, right? But time and loss has made him a much more cautious person, and he isn't the first one to go and fight. So even when he has gone on adventures with Scrooge and the kids, he's always the more cautious one. He only kind of resorts to a fight when he feels like he's forced into a corner.
Yeah.
So for him to just completely take charge and just be so in it to win it felt not totally true to the Donald we've seen, despite the voice thing. But I do think, he is feeling more confident because everyone's taking him seriously. I think that could both be true, but it's still, I don't know, it didn't ring super true to me, but it was interesting.
But I do think, though, they may have made Fun Games the reason why we haven't seen much of Donald this season. When the others been on adventures, Donald's been home fixing the boat off screen. I think he's been reflecting his relationship with Scrooge, thinking about things, and just sort of he finally learned. He finally decided to forgive Scrooge.
Yeah, I will say that off screen. I will say that an in-show motivation is right that they come to this. We should go back with Scrooge. He is family. We've been apart for so long. And so, you can try justifying it as Donald fights when there's family to protect, because we have seen that in the past, right? Like that episode in the Greek island, for example. He enters the fight once his children are being threatened. But the problem is that I think this episode, it does it for the sake of keeping the kids and everyone together, but I don't think that the Scrooge-Donald bond has been as developed as I think that moment needs for us to buy into Donald going this hard into rescuing Scrooge.
I also think some people may be overthinking this one little line of when he says, "Stay away from my kids." Some people reflect the fact that he just said kids, not stay away from my boys, and that he's sort of accepting Webby as family, as someone like his sort of adopted niece.
I like that idea.
I know. I love that idea too, though. We haven't really seen much of that really on screen. But Donald's such a nice guy, though. He would accept her. you know. And I always wanted to see the weirdness of Donald raising girls. I got this AU.
Okay. It's too early for fanfic corner. Save that for later. But yeah. So Donald had a huge part in this, and I think in the end I enjoyed that he finally got a large role. Like for character weirdness aside, like I just like that.
Yeah, he deserved a moment. I agree with that.
Yeah, he needed this, and I think he deserves all the screen time that he gets. Unfortunately, he coughs up the voice changer at the end, but maybe that's for the best in the long run. Who knows?
Thank goodness he coughed it up.
I love
prolonged Donald with that personality.
I love
old Donald back.
Yeah, me too. I love that Donald too. So he's you saw that. Well, sure. I show you, Michelle, was had the same sort of message that appreciate the Donald we have, not the cool Donald everyone wants.
Not the cool Donald.
Yeah, he's cool already.
Yeah, he's cool in that he's such a hot mess. Like that's the best thing about him. Why ever change that permanently?
That's why personally I like him much better than Mickey, because Mickey's such a Gary Sue. Donald is flawed in himself.
Yeah. Now, another character that got a huge focus on this was Magica de Spell. Like we've been having her as a shadow for the entire time. This episode opens with her already having possessed Lena. I just as an aside, I really love the animation of her vomiting Magica out through her eyes.
So creepy, isn't it?
It's a really odd animation to get from Disney, but like it's amazing the
great.
they get it.
I loved her trying to think, what would children say?
Yeah, that
like,
too.
What can we get through the censors?
No, also like when she's possessing Lena, like she makes Lena much more like hand movie, like just like waving arms everywhere. So like I like that part of it. But yeah, we have Magic possessing Lena for half of this. She ends up infiltrating Scrooge's place, getting his dime through various things we'll get to later. But and she breaks out. So we have Magica in the flesh now. How did we get Magica as a character on her own in this episode? Steve, we can go to you first. What were your reactions to finally getting Magica as her own thing?
Wow. Oh, this is epic. Magica, epic. She looked glorious, so gloriously evil. And yeah, she's still a little hammy as a villain, but I think all the villains are a little hammy. I mean, but she's definitely more of a serious threat than, say, a guy like Glomgold is, so give her that. I don't know. She did seem like she was a little bit like she wanted revenge so badly. She was a little impatient. She needed her gloating time. She could have won maybe if she just wouldn't have took her time, because she wanted to torment Scrooge. And I called it the last podcast. I said Magica is going to be the savior of the family, and Scrooge even said so in the episode. He said that if it wasn't for Magica trying to attack him, the family probably would have been gone forever. So yeah. Magica's our savior.
Thanks for calling the obvious. Good job. Anyway, Michelle, your thoughts on Magic as a character here?
I really liked her for the first half of the episode.
So basically, when she possessed Lena, you liked her.
Yes, and then her very first evilness at the tail end of the first half was really, really nice. But then, I mean, my thing is, so we've been building her up this whole season, right? We've been assuming she's like the most powerfully, most evilly villain ever, and then the 4 kids take her down, no problem. And she's this giant scepter. She's always shadow cloud. Doesn't matter. They take her down themselves. And then even before she loses her power, Scrooge is just like besting her at every move. And I'm kind of like, what? I mean, I thought she was going to be more competent than this. And then she just wasn't. Even the kids could beat her and at least disarm her. And that was kind of a letdown.
Well,
like a lot.
But to be fair, it turned around when the power of friendship got Lena out for a moment and just turned the whole fight around. So, if it wasn't for that Jessica Sec Machina, things would have turned out differently.
I guess, but
yeah.
I see what you're saying, Michelle, and I agree, especially the Scrooge ending. Like that was so quick. It was like 30 seconds of swordplay, pretty much.
And she still had her power. I mean, how is he just winning? He's Scrooge, but he's still human. He doesn't have magic. He doesn't even like magic. And I think just if we hadn't been building her up literally the whole season, it just felt like we wiped our hands of her very quickly, and she didn't end up doing a whole lot, even though she had so much power. I mean, she didn't get rid of anybody. She didn't even get rid of people that Scrooge didn't care about. She gloated a lot, which is a great evil thing to do. She monologued, which is another great thing to do, but she didn't really accomplish anything except turning like a couple gems into ice cream. That's about it. And I kind of bummed. Like I wish the stakes were higher. I wish she was more of a threat when she actually had the power to do anything.
Yeah, I think Steve mentions a good point in calling her Hammy, and I think that's what this episode really dives into. Like even in her individual state, like she keeps the hamminess up, but it's a question of whether I think she can be hammy and still be menacing, but the problem is that the whole fighting sequence, especially at the end, kind of takes away stakes from that.
The menace.
The
stakes are totally gone.
The thing that ruins it for me, though, is her exit at the end when she says, "You haven't seen the last of me, McDuck," and then we see that she's still there. It's like
I liked the smoke bomb thing. I thought that was
I think that was like that. This finishes her conversion into a Glomgold type villain, right?
Yeah.
It's like now she's gonna be hammy without that much of the menace.
Now that's not even like original. I've seen that by a certain character on My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic named Trixie. She does it all the time. It's like, be a little original, won't you?
Well, smoke bombs are a very classic, goofy villain way to escape.
Oh, totally.
So,
yeah.
I know. I've seen it in Kim Possible a lot too.
Yeah, but I think Michelle, you mentioned this, but like her first evil action is to like suck up Lena into the shadow realm and suck up Scrooge into the dime.
Yeah,
like
she was at her scariest before the other episode starts. Like that's her at her prime. It's like, oh man, what's she gonna do? And then surprise, she doesn't really do anything, and that was the letdown.
Right, but I like that moment. I think does deserve a little bit of highlight, just because like
sure
that does feel like the peak of her menace as a villain, and also it comes right after the Scrooge like, oh yeah, I do like my family, we should fight for it.
Oh yeah, I do like my family.
Yeah.
Scrooge.
Yeah, I guess we can move towards that because this episode is also a continuation of the Sun Chaser thing where everyone abandons Scrooge. And so we have Scrooge in this episode. He opens up as an old man hobo, basically, piling his mansion with pizzas. And
only pizza.
Yeah, trying to convince himself that he's all right, that he's never been better. And Lena, in the form of Magica, has to slap sense into him to like say, "Hey, I'm Scrooge McDuck." And eventually he gets to, oh yeah, family. That's right. I should.
Oh yeah, family.
But I say it like this because I think that coming off of that entire Sun Chaser episode, like the whole build up, especially at the very end, like the hammer of him having his family leave him and coming to terms with the guilt of losing Della and all that. And then here it feels like it gets solved so quickly, so nonchalantly. It's just Lena slapping sense into him literally. And then at the very end, once he gets out, they have the whole family hug. But like before, in between that is just all the fight sequence because Scrooge is trapped in the dime. So like it feels when you put this juxtaposed with the Sun Chaser, I think that this is just wrapped up way too quickly and way too easily.
Well, I so agree with that because I will say I wasn't on the last podcast, but my biggest pet peeve with such a good episode was the ending when we have such a strong ending, right? Like everyone's hurt, like the info's out in the open. It's a tragic situation, no one can fix, presumably. But then at the very end, like I felt like the show didn't feel comfortable leaving Scrooge's character in an ambiguously moral gray place because like it is his fault. Like You know, I mean, like Della did it. I mean, it was her choice, but like he enables her, and they call him out on that stuff, and that was so strong. And then at the very end, it was like, oh no! Here's a montage of how hard he tried and all the money he spent, and he's really a really great guy. And don't you think he's complicated or he did a bad thing or messed up, because he's really great, and he feels so sad. And I kind of wish that montage was not there. That they would have just saved that for the next episode and let us like kind of see him in this very shaken, messy place. I wanted to see a messy Scrooge. I wanted him to regret it, to blame himself, and to not like for it to just be what it is. Like things aren't inherently good or bad. And I would have loved it if they had kept it there because and we have this, Alex, like he comes back, they have no time to communicate how they feel with each other. So they just had Mrs. Beakley explain what happened in the montage in the last episode to the nephews. And they're like, oh my God, like he like lost so much money and he like sent all these things to like, oh, we had no idea. But like, that's not nearly, I mean, it would have been so much more messy and complicated for them to have a conversation together properly. And I think they kind of want to avoid that because it wouldn't have been super lighthearted and it would have been a lot more real. And they have, you know, maybe they're trying really hard to balance the exciting, you know, cartoony aspects of the show with things that feel really like emotionally deep and resonating. And that's a really hard balance. And I think they're still kind of figuring out their footing on that. Like I appreciate what they've given us is so great and more than I could have expected, but it clearly still has some shaky legs. That hopefully is going to get better in season 2.
Yeah, I also felt though, did Scrooge ever apologize in this episode? He never, especially to Webby. Especially to Webby. So. Webby never got an apology for what Scrooge said.
Like Alex said, there was like no time for them to have a conversation. Yeah. They're just like, oh, a common enemy, we'll group up, and now it's fine, I guess. You just like sweep all that frustration and hurt and pain under the rug.
Yeah, can I just one thing I do like about the action and fighting? I love all these cameos we got. So I love we got to see Gabby Staberson back.
Yeah. Also, I think Fenton's mom was somewhere in there too. But,
yeah, she was fighting Gabby, like arresting her for something, and Glongo's shadow just threw him right in the air, like curse you me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the shadow. The guy who like gave him money still, like he and his shadow
Gladstone.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, we bring Paul F. Tompkins back to do one line. Good job. Yeah, so Scrooge has all this going on, and this results from Della Duck being lost in space, as mentioned by the previous episode. So this episode gets all resolved. Magica runs away. They've saved the day. And so there's a TV broadcast saying that they saved the day. And hey, we cut to the moon, and there's a TV on the moon.
Oh man!
Old TV too.
An old TV.
Yeah.
How's that work?
Well, we'll ask because
it was old when she went. It was old when she went into space, so maybe it was like the hottest new TV at the time, but she's been up there for a while.
But they didn't have the DTV transfer for the DTV antennas.
Now you're considering realism here, Steve? Now? Anyways, yeah, Della Duck is alive, guys. She says, boys? And that's the last word of the episode, and we cut away. But yeah, so Della, I guess we're gonna get more of her, and
she's alive.
Yes, we have to now.
Any theories on exactly what's going on with her? Because I've heard from some people that the whole TV thing implies that she's just finished building it, which means that there's some kind of time weirdness where she just got on the moon and stuff skipped around.
No, her hair looks a lot longer. I think she's been aging normally.
Oh, I was hoping though there'd be like something like we did on Voltron in terms of the whole aging thing, like how she kind of went in time a few years, and then Donald could truly be like the older brother to her. That kind of be kind of funny.
What? Yeah. I don't think that's like a thing Donald necessarily really wants.
No, I'm just talking about more of it's just for more of a gag or something.
Okay.
But I guess were you guys excited by this? Surprised by this? Expecting it?
I was surprised.
I was expecting it.
But how are you expecting after the super sad episode where everyone accepted that she was dead?
If you listen to the last podcast, I pretty much called in the last podcast
Steve
because
was
of
very
something that
very
happened
hesitant to accept that Della had died, and apparently he was right. So good for him.
And also because it happened in one of the comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about it, Alex?
I don't know how to feel because look, we started the pilot of this episode of this series ended with the revelation that with Louis figuring out that his mom is still out there, and Dewey, right. But we end the season with finally getting to Della's mom, so that means that's going to be a plot line now for season 2 as well,
right?
And so I guess I'm fine with it because if it's something from the very beginning, I guess it makes sense to keep that as part of your show for the entirety of its run. We'll have Della stuff to deal with throughout. But at the same time, this was a whole Magica-centric finale, so it almost feels like an afterthought.
I got a theory what's going on with Della. Probably some aliens pretty much helped her out, and maybe one alien maybe fell in love with her and kind of helping her, feeding her and stuff all these years.
Okay.
Whoa.
Aliens.
Whoa.
I mean, this is DuckTales, so I can't discard aliens because
that's true. What are their duck aliens? I always love that.
What if Howard the Duck exists in this universe?
No, take him away.
No.
Doesn't he live on a planet of ducks? What if there's just an alien planet of ducks?
Well, it's not him.
Don't spoil this show with Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and it has been confirmed elsewhere that Paget Brewster, who voices Della in this episode, will continue to be part of the cast. So we can presume that Della is going to have at least several episodes in that season. So I guess we'll be continuing to go along with that.
Though we could still probably maybe could have some flashback stuff. So
that's also true.
Yeah. Or we could just be checking in with her progress on the moon. Her being like, boys, I'm coming back. I just gotta keep building this. It's not ready yet, but I'm watching you on TV, and I'm up on your latest adventure. Maybe they won't meet her till season 3 or something, but we'll still check in with her a few times in season 2.
The shocking part of the last scene though was actually Roxanne actually doing some honest journalism for once.
Oh my god, that's a hot take, Steve. Some shade in there.
Well, I mean, we have seen Roxanne twist the news a little bit in the past, so good for her that she didn't manage to blame Scrooge for this. Although actually she'd be justified, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Let's see here. Are there any large pieces of this episode that we haven't talked about yet?
Launchpad was perfect. Had great lines. I forget exactly what they are, but I remember they made me laugh and they're really good.
Well, Launchpad begins singing a made-up song to the Darkwing theme.
That was so good. He's like, I'm so good at crashing things, and then it's really hard for him to crash the plane, and I was rooting for him.
Here's the thing. The part of the whole family plotline is that Webby and Launchpad are planning this fake dinner party, right? Mrs. Beakley figures it out and it's like, hey, I'm an agent and a grandmother, so I know how to weaponize guilt. And so the whole thing is they get the nephews to go back by making them feel guilty for leaving Scrooge. I think that in this episode it works because of how, we talked about this at the last podcast, they reacted so harshly in part because they're kids and so they don't consider the whole context of things, so providing them the context is obviously important. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel a little bothered that this is the way we're doing it by going straight to guilt as opposed to just giving the facts. So I don't know if you guys felt that sequence worked or am I the only one with this?
I think two things helped it work. I think first, even though it was a very manipulative monologue with Mrs. Beakley saying oh yeah, sure, you've already clearly lost one family member forever and that's hard and that sucks, but yeah, sure, push away somebody else and just keep the family apart and make your lives harder in some ways. That's definitely going to be helpful for you later. I do think she brought up some really good points with that. And also just seeing Donald, Donald has also lost Della, not just Scrooge. That was his sister. he's been carrying that around just as long as Scrooge, and it's really hard on him. And having him who has had so much trouble and struggled so much with Scrooge over the years and fought with him, to have him see how important his nephew's bond with Scrooge has been this past year or however long, for him to be the one to be like, you know what, we need to stick together. That is like the objectively most important thing for us as a family. And this hurt and pain we're feeling for this one person, like it shouldn't let us like break the bonds that are more important moving forward with the people who are still alive, who are still clearly important to us. And like that's what really sold it for me. Like if Donald can feel that way, then I think it's gonna be okay.
I also feel that maybe Mrs. Beakley kind of maybe gave that speech to Scrooge when this whole little thing happened, maybe long ago, and probably Scrooge may not have listened.
Probably, yeah.
Else I want to say, the guilt thing. I just thought, what about one family member we're not thinking about? Speaking of sisters, is I kind of wonder if they were alive, how Donald and Della's parents reacted to this. Will they blame Scrooge, or did they just maybe die of a broken heart? Because Donald and Della, they are Scrooge's younger sister's kids. So,
although I think we talked about in the Castle McDuck episode that family is kind of confusing once you get past the generations.
No, but it's in the pilot episode they come and state that as fact. Would we maybe see them in season 2, and maybe they have to maybe forgive Scrooge like the rest of the family has, or maybe just come to some closure?
That's another thing, although also that would imply we need more people to be immortal, because I would imagine Scrooge and Donald's parents probably would be.
Yeah.
But
maybe you have a seance. You can have a seance. You can talk to them.
Sure. So yeah, we had that whole party thing, and that involves Launchpad a lot as well in there.
Well, I love how Launchpad reacted to Beakley's sort of reverse psychology. He's like, no,
you're standing up for her. Yeah, she knows a lot. This lady knows a lot.
Launchpad did not get it. I love that.
Yeah. Also, his drink popsicles that he tried to pass off family recipe was amazing. Quality moment.
Yeah. Also, I believe DuckTales enthusiasts would be angry with us if we didn't at least point out that they were going to move to Cape Suzette, which is a reference to, I believe, a tailspin. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that, Steve?
So like a boat. Oh, you want me to
I don't know what it is.
The 5-second explanation of what Cape Suzette is.
It's another show. It's another show on from Disney in the 90s. It came out like 1 year before Darkwing Duck. It's an alright.
They referenced Darkwing Duck like twice. They've done it like 3 times. They did Gummy Bears, so this isn't just.
Yeah, they're referring all the other shows. Though personally, for me, who cares? Just give me Daisy. So fine, this stuff. So
the priorities.
Okay.
Yes,
Here it is. Here it is.
What?
Tailspin.
Okay. He's linking Tailspin in the chat. It's about,
it was in 1990.
Yeah, so this is another Disney reference as DuckTales.
Yeah, heard of the show?
This bear looks familiar.
Luke from the Jungle Book.
That's crazy. Okay. Oh, I remember the Rescue Rangers with Chip and Dale. That was a pretty good show.
Yeah, that's a different
show from this, but
even though I hated old school Chip and Dale from the shorts from back in the day because all the memes that did to Donald.
Yeah,
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers are cool. They're cool, but I'm talking about the old school Chip and Dale from like the 40s and 50s. They sucked.
Well, that obviously means that Chip and Dale are going to show up in a season 2 episode just for you, Steve. Don't worry. Yeah. So I guess other bits and pieces from this. Let's see here. What have we? I guess we didn't really talk about Scrooge really likes pizza. I guess, or is that just a classic hobo thing? Or like
I don't know how much Pahosi pizza.
How much money that could have cost?
Well, like
apparently it was anchovy pizza too, which is pretty gnarly, I guess.
Is it time for this big spoiler corner?
No,
not yet.
I have one last hot take. I've been thinking about it. You know what would have made this finale really great? If they had let Scrooge talk to the family at the end and have that difficult conversation instead of introducing Della. Because if there was no Della, like, maybe they could tell people she was alive in season 2. But, like, the point of this first season seems to me to be as much about the nephews getting to know their Uncle Scrooge and going on adventures and having this whole new life as Scrooge is to, like, coming to terms with, you know, finally getting past his fear that he's had since Stella died in air quotes, that, like, he can't get close to anyone because they'll be in danger and it's better to shut himself off than ever opening up to love and support. And the nephews and Donald entering his life beginning of the season helped him learn again to trust and love family. And if you had gotten rid of Della and you've been like, okay, yeah, she is dead, but, like, look at what we have, look at what we built together this past however many episodes. This is real. This is important. I'm sorry I, like, kept things from you, but, like, let's just move forward and be the best, like, team and the best family we can. And I, like, trust you and I love you and I want to be better. And I feel like I can finally do that and move past Della's death. Like, that would have been so powerful and so strong, and it would have been a great thematic conclusion. And instead, they're like, oh, JK, all those really intense emotional feelings you had 2 episodes ago with this huge, devastating reveal is now a moot point because she's on the moon and she's alive, and now I can think about that instead. Like, I wish they had held off. Like, this is what I wish had happened. I think it would have been a lot stronger, honestly.
And also give Webby that apology.
Well,
and also give Webby the apology.
Well, actually, connecting this to Webby, another, like, small thing in this episode was that, like, when they find out that Lena has been a shadow of Magica this entire time, like, the nephews try to be like, hey, we're still your family, like, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, they try to get this thing in, too, where, like, Webby is now part of the family, and, like, she should be included in that stuff, and that should be important to her, too. But, like, it feels like they touch upon it, and it just never really gets there, but I do think that that's also something that this season has been working up to, like, Webby, like, being a full member of the family. So it doesn't feel that way at the very end. Like, she's like, it's the Scrooge and the 3 nephews hugging, and then Webby shows up from outside.
Yeah, maybe that's symbolism. Maybe it could be.
Yeah, like they've said they've had conversations about her being more like family, but the ending doesn't necessarily visually reflect that, which I guess, that's a good point, Alex.
Well, Magica does clear it up, though. She's the housekeeper's granddaughter and new best friend.
Your family's, yeah,
her family structure's weird. It's weird. It's like a joke out of Spaceballs. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. When they mention
it's a very meta.
I'm your father's brother's cousins, whatever.
Former roommate,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very meta joke, admittedly. Before we get into just, like, overall stuff, like, is there, obviously this episode was very heavy on comedy. I think we gave Launchpad his due. Any particular lines that stood out to you as especially funny out of this episode? I have a couple, but you guys?
I don't know.
I don't.
I already told you the gyro line of, aw. Oh, how about
that was good.
Manny?
That was good.
Manny, how about Manny? His, like, moments, like, he's the one who gets subtitles, not Donald. But how it's like, I need this job, and other lines. Manny sort of a seeing stealer.
Yeah. I guess Manny, the headless horse, like, he gets time.
Oh yeah.
Michelle, do you have anything that stands out?
Not on the top of my head. I just remember I was laughing a lot and I was enjoying it a lot, but it's hard to think of specific lines. Okay. I wasn't taking notes when I was watching it, unfortunately.
Okay, that's fine. Like,
what are your lines?
Well, I enjoyed very much Donald going, "I am the storm," and then Beakley's like, "Have you been saying things like this all the time?" Like,
that was a really good one.
So, like, that follow-up really makes it funny. Also, when Magica is doing the speech, he's like, "Don't roll your eyes at me." Like, he's getting annoyed with Scrooge. So, like, I think that Magica and Donald have their funny moments as well as Launchpad. So, like, I just, because obviously DuckTales, like, it is a plot show, it's an action show, but at the end of the day, it's also a comedy, and I think this finale does very well in keeping the comedy as part of the show's structure, even though it's a finale. Like, it doesn't abandon that. So I just want to give it props for still being funny regardless.
Okay.
And
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And I guess, Michelle, you talked a little bit about the season building up to something. So I guess we can talk about just a retrospective of the entire season. Like, where are we at with this show now that we have a full season in the books? Like, are we willing to call this a great show? Is it a show that, like, still is already in a good place and can keep building? Or, like, where how do we feel about it in general?
Okay, I think it's a good first season. It can get better. It's finding its legs. I think it found its legs towards the end. So I'd like to see what they could do in a season 2. It's so far it's so good. I'm not sure it's as great as Entertainment Weekly says it is, but a little too much.
Steve, so many hot takes coming from you. Wow.
Michelle?
I think I didn't really know what to expect going into the show. I've been very pleasantly surprised. It's become a show that I really look forward to seeing every week. And I think this is a lot because we cover a lot of shows. But this one has always stood out. It has a very strong sense of itself. It has a very specific flavor, honestly. Like, I think one of the nice things about this show is it's scripted before it's boarded, and you really get a sense of like the really snappy, funny lines and the good dialogue, and just like the progression of arcs in a way that is very different from board-driven shows. And I really appreciate having that. I do, like I said before, like I think there were like a couple things I might nitpick that I wish had been a little stronger, but there are so many beats that just landed so much more than I could have ever expected them to. So I think moving forward, like they've got so many good tools in their toolbox. They just got to polish them off a little, and they're going to be like phenomenal moving forward season 2. So I'm overall very, very happy.
What about you, Alec?
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm in a place where, like, there are characters specifically that I really enjoy. Like, I really like Launchpad. I really like Donald. Yeah. I like Scrooge for most episodes. I think in this finale he kind of gets a bit of a short shrift, but like overall, like, he's still an incredible character. Of the nephews, like, I still haven't really gotten that strong of an attachment. Although I will say that Louis has grown on me a little bit, especially in the last episode. Like,
you gave him some depth now.
Yeah, he started to get depth near the end, and I think that in season 2 we can build on that. There's something there. And all in all, I think that their emotional arcs are very well done. I think that there are still episodes that happen that are just like, well, this is an episode.
Yes,
but there are
like that,
but
like that pirate
especially
episode, like that.
Yeah, the pirate episode, for example.
Yeah.
But like in the back half, there are also incredible episodes as well that make you think, okay, like DuckTales can be an incredible show. It is capable of that. And so, like, with this finale, I think in the end, I'm like, well, it's a good first season, because really, I think at the end of the day, I get kind of spoiled with shows that are so far in. So, like, they have an increasingly high quality, but also because they've had several seasons to build up. And there are a couple of shows that have had incredible first seasons. But, like, even for an average first season, like, DuckTales is still pretty good in its own right.
Yeah. Yes.
And we do have stuff to set up here. So I do think that there is... there is reason to be optimistic about DuckTales continuing to improve on an already okay to above average first season for it, honestly.
So, well, speaking of season 2,
wait! I have one more thing.
Okay.
One more thing.
This just occurred to me now. Just talking. I'm starting to feel this way about how I do Steven. Just in that sometimes I know some people more than others, like cough, Dylan, cough, get really mad when we have non-plotty episodes, when it's more character focused and it's more lighthearted. And it occurs to me now, I love the feelsy stuff. Like, I'm all in on character. I'm all in on stakes and feelings and emotions and conversations and things being messy. But you can't properly enjoy that if you don't have something lighthearted and chill to balance it. Like, you can't. Like, there would be no plateaus and valleys. Like, it'd all be kind of stagnantly one thing, and it's no fun.
Yeah,
so,
I know. I'm with you,
stuff,
Michelle.
it helps balance out all the intense stuff, and it helps the intense stuff feel more intense because you're not getting spoonfuls of it consistently each week. It's like a nice surprise when the show goes there. but without the other stuff, it wouldn't be as intense when it really did happen.
That's a fair perspective.
I know how you feel, Michelle. I know some shows that just have no fun and just so serious. Cough, Attack on Titan. Yeah, like
grind down a little.
You know, all the shows like Cough, Attack on Titan, Cough, Attack on Titan. Yeah. Sorry, I had a little something in my throat.
Sure,
I mean, it's true. It's not very comical. It's very. It knows what lane it has and it stays there.
Speaking of season 2,
finally we can talk.
Here we go.
Okay. So very recently, I think right after the finale, it was announced that we are going to get season 2 episodes this year. So it's not actually going to be that long of a hiatus, it seems.
So we don't have to watch Quack back in the meantime.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can if you want, but I don't think any of us are. This is a spoiler warning. We are about to discuss contents from the DuckTales panel at San Diego Comic-Con 2018. So if you would prefer not to listen to this part of the discussion, you can fast forward to about 59 minutes and 15 seconds, or about 4 minutes from now. Thank you very much. We recently also had San Diego Comic-Con pass by. I don't think we've ever actually talked on this podcast about the stuff there. Most of it was revealing the footage for this finale. So, like, for example, Magica's look, if you had seen that teaser, you already had an idea of what it was going to be like. Like, they showed her eyes and stuff. So, it was mostly stuff focusing on the finale. But we did get a couple of season 2 things, including, for some weird reason, we are getting the 3 Caballeros in this show.
Yay!
Steve, I know, was very excited about that.
Jose Panchito. I kind of wonder, though, if they've known Della in the past. Knowing Jose, I kind of wonder if he finds Della attractive and might flirt with her if we ever get her.
Why do you keep
that's
bringing
your first
Della
reaction?
to these, the alien, the poor parents or whatever?
Come on.
Why does everyone have to be interested in Della? Why can't she just exist?
Well, you don't know Jose, though, but actually, no, I thought something better. What about Jose maybe has attracted to Mrs. Beakley?
Look, all I'm going to say on the matter is that I really hope that they don't go for this. Like, I understand this is from like the 40s or whatever, but I just hope they don't continue the character stereotype of Latino characters being very romantic and like womanizing. I'd prefer that not carry over. Thank you very much.
Well, that's just his character, though. But
yeah, I mean, I guess, but I prefer that we move on. Like, give him a little bit of it. Like, look, they've changed other characters from what I've understood, so
exactly.
I'd hope that
why not that
they give him a little depth as well.
Yeah.
So, but we will be getting that.
The one we're going to talk about is Webby's new friend.
They also showed character designs that presumably are going to appear in that season, and the one that gets people most excited is that there's another duck-looking person next to Webby in one of these.
Doesn't she
duck-looking person?
She looks a little familiar. Doesn't she look familiar, like some like corporate person? You know, a guy named Mark Beeks.
Are you trying to insinuate this is Mark Beeks' daughter?
Let me scroll back up to look at it.
No, I don't think he has kids. I think maybe little sister or niece or something. Because I think Mark Beeks is definitely on a certain team, so I just can't imagine him with a woman. But. Okay. But yeah, doesn't she look a little bit like Mark Beach? Wouldn't that be something if Webby?
She's got the color.
Webby is forming.
Right.
She's not a duck. Is she like what are those marshland birds with the long beaks?
You don't get a real close up of her.
Not a stork, like a warden, a warren, something like that. Marshy bird.
What'd be cool though? Webby's forming a gang of friends. They're all related to villains, so.
That'd be a pretty powerful network. I hope that does happen.
But you know what I'm hoping though, since Lena is sort of the magical person, I'm hoping she's like a tech geek or something, like really like fancy in terms of technology and stuff, because that would really good balance out. The three of them would be some awesome little team. So
yeah. So.
Spoiler! Lena's coming back. Lena's coming back.
Are you sure about this?
They spoiled it. They gave her a new character
really
design.
Hope so.
Well,
they gave her like a new look and everything. So unless they're really trolling us,
yeah, because this was before the finale happened. So like, you never know. They could have just showed Lena just because. Like,
that would make me so sad if that was the thinking behind it, though, Alex. I hope that's not the case.
Okay. Anyways, we are going to have a season 2 very soon, apparently. But
really?
Well,
how soon?
I said this at the top.
Year.
But, like we are going to get season 2 before the end of this year, so that
maybe
that's
December.
to look forward to.
Maybe December 31st.
Yeah, that would technically count, but but yeah, so we are going to be back sooner than I expected. But in any case, for those of you who have been following the DuckTales podcast, we do want to thank each and every one of you for following along. We've been trying to stay as consistent as we can. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we've managed to cover every episode of this season, and I'm personally shocked myself that I managed to do this.
Good job, guys.
But
Thank
we
you. Did it.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And Overly Animated will be back here to talk about season 2, I'm sure. But until we get to that point, you can find out all the info on this podcast, other shows we cover in the meantime at overlyanimated.com. You can chat with us on Discord about your reactions to the DuckTales finale, thoughts on season 2, or any other show we cover here. You can find that at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us financially via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. If you've been following us through this entire podcast, we would greatly appreciate that support as well. We want to give thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Rachel, aka Rachel Rose. And thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, and Hugh. Besides DuckTales, recommendations include very recently we've done a Craig of the Creek podcast. Mysticons is a show over on Nickelodeon that is wrapping up. If you want to catch up on that, there's a lot to do.
Catch up on Craig and the Creek.
Yeah, I mentioned Craig of the Creek.
There's a lot.
No one told me there are new episodes, so I'm...
Yeah. On Disney, I don't think there's any shows that we cover currently. Star vs. Oddly enough, DuckTales is going to get a new season. Star vs. the Forces of Evil isn't getting a new season until next year, so we'll be waiting on that.
I think I figured out why. I think DuckTales first started being made in 2015. So it's actually been in production for a few years, which makes they were probably finished it at least a year ago and have been banking episodes.
Yeah. Also, next month, perhaps we might get some OKKO. So
I hope so. That might be too soon, but I hope.
That's our sister podcast.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Like while we've been here on DuckTales, this same group has also been doing OKKO podcast concurrently. So if you care about that, you can also look for our OKKO podcast as well. But once again, thanks to everyone who's been listening throughout this entire first season. Feel free to send us any messages wherever you're listening to us on YouTube or directly on overlyanimated.com. We would always appreciate seeing any reactions from the people who listen to us. But thank you all so much, and we'll see you for season 2, I guess. Adios.
Bye.
Bye.